When we were very little, we used to get taken to Sunday school and actually learning about just the love of God and His acceptance. Once I started intermediate, I ended up meeting a really wonderful friend. She was basically like a sister, and we were both to be at a Girls' Brigade Young Leaders Camp. I couldn't go. There was a terrible car accident and she lived for an hour but she died, and I never got to see her again. I just really questioned God as to why He had taken her. I had no answers, and I was just really lost trust in God, because that to me wasn't love. Stopped going to Girls' Brigade, different group of friends, doing different things, just going through the motions of life, but pretty empty. It almost started like a 40-year desert for me, away from God, knew of God, didn't understand, didn't have a relationship, that I'd heard other people had relationships with God. I went through this whole crazy thought of like, well, if I went back to church and was really a good Christian person, then does that mean that my child will be deformed? Or I just thought there was going to be some sort of price that I didn't want to pay to actually be a Christian. So I got married and went back to church a few times, and I wanted God back in my life, and we decided that we were going to go through the baptismal waters. Thought things were going to be really changed when I sort of came up from those baptismal waters, and they didn't really. Through our marriage we started drifting apart. Then I had a few hardships within my family. Of my 4 brothers, 2 of them got some really serious cancers. Then I got cancer. Then at that time my husband announced that he was going to leave the marriage, and that happened the very day that my brother died. He was this grief that I'd been not really ever got over for all those other years, and now I had all these other layers of grief on top of it, and I couldn't make my way out on my own. I just had nothing left. I did just cry out to God. I said, I can't do this anymore. If this is where I'm supposed to be, then up to you, I need some help here. And I left it at that. But strangely, even though I didn't have an answer right there and then, I did feel a sense of peace that he had heard. My pastor said, I think that you'd really enjoy going to New Wine Festival. I went. So when I was in worship at New Wine, it was, like I could feel like I could be free. I suddenly felt that I wasn't going to have this huge price to pay if I did this. It was like I was so empty and I had nothing to lose. So it was like up went my hands, and for the first time in my life as an adult, I felt God's grace and the love of God and Jesus back into my life. Whoever would have thought? Later in the year there was an opportunity for people of the congregation just to become a member of the church. Initially I went into some fear about that. Was there going to be a price if I was just going to showing that commitment? But I decided I would become a member of the church. The next day I went off to work, and it got to about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and my manager came in and said to me, "Can I have a word with you, like in a private office?" And I said, "Oh, here it is. This is the price. It's going to be the price." But it was a new job handed to me basically on a plate, and it was like the day after I'd taken this church membership, and what an absolute blessing. And to receive the blessings. So now my life looks really different from what it did. Letting God have the hands on my life. He's got the wheel. I'm not living in that fear of what price do I have to pay. I realise I'm living the life that God designed for me. To not experience the fullness of God's grace, that's the real price.